Hello. So I'm gonna start recording more audio just because it's easier. Especially like if I don't feel like doing my makeup. And I'll probably edit this out, but I really pinched the shit out of my face and destroyed it. It's something that I do. I probably won't edit that out because I don't mind being like at least a little real on my channel. I mean, whatever. I don't care. I have flaws. Whatever. Yeah, and I have it's like a common thing with like autistic people that we tend to like pinch our face when we're like overstimulated and stuff. So I do that quite a bit. So it's no big deal. It heals pretty quickly, but it's just I always feel shamed when I give into that habit because, you know, it's just ugh. I don't like giving into vices like that, but sometimes I allow myself to because I'm like super stressed out and like ruminating on negative things, and I just need some sort of outlet. And I guess it's like the little bit of pain that comes with it kind of like helps me kind of release. So whatever. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It sucks. I would like to stop doing it, but I feel like most likely I'll stop doing it when I am not home so much, which should be soon because I should be starting college soon. Typically, that's how it goes with me. Like if I'm busy and I have stuff to do, then I don't do stuff like that. But yeah, and you know, if I have places to be, I gotta show my face. I'm not gonna destroy it that much. So whatever. But ooh, someone's calling me. Oh, it's a scam call. I'm thinking about making this video about kind of, it feels a little weird talking into the microphone without, oh crap, I almost knocked over my iPad, without the visual of seeing myself in the camera or whatever, but it's okay. So I guess I'll just yap about whatever's like ruminating on my mind, and then I'll just come up with the title later. I kind of have ideas, like concepts. I want to go more into like what my thoughts are on jealousy, because I mentioned jealousy in a couple of videos, and I think I had a few people commenting like no shade towards them. I'm not saying like it's bad, but they'll say stuff like, oh, like maybe that person wasn't jealous of you, or because like I mentioned things in passing. But I kind of want to like I'll probably make a few videos on this concept, diving into different like ideas behind it and stuff, but I kind of want to talk about like my view on jealousy and like how I feel about it and stuff. So I guess I want to start off by saying, first of all, jealousy is a normal emotion. Everybody gets jealous. Everybody feels jealous. I think there's a lot of shame surrounding jealousy, but I think that the best way to beat jealousy is to first beat the shame aspect of it, because you really don't have to be ashamed of being jealous. It doesn't make you like pathetic or weird or like immature. It's a very normal emotion. It's very normal. The best way to see jealousy, in my opinion, is to see it as a compass pointing you towards what you really want out of life. So if you get jealous often, then it's probably a sign that you do know what you want out of life, but you're not working towards that right now, or you just don't have access to it right now. So in my opinion, you know, the best ways to get around certain things that you can't have exactly, that you're jealous of, is to try your best to recreate it in your own way in your life that doesn't bring harm to the person that you're jealous of, right? Because when you start to think about jealousy as more focused on you and yourself and your desires, you're kind of taking the power away from the person. Now I kind of want to go into more like negative manifestations of jealousy that I've noticed. I've noticed a lot in like past friendships, I'll say quote unquote friendships. I wouldn't even consider them actual friendships because it always felt lonely in those friendships. It always felt kind of like just like empty and lonely, and now I realize it's because my intuition sort of knew that there wasn't an actual emotional connection there. Wait, I'm gonna pause real quick just to make sure I'm actually recording. Okay, yeah, my microphone is working. So it always felt lonely, and it felt like very like empty and hollow, and I always felt like things like in my I guess I'll say like in my nervous system, like I always feel things in my stomach. My chest would feel like it's sinking sometimes when I hang out with these people, and I would have this like fog over my head, and this sort of like this like slow kind of like unmotivated like, and I always thought like, oh, maybe I'm just really depressed or there's something wrong with me. But I realized that I was putting up with a lot of shit, and I was a lot of times when you're in a friendship with someone, they're nice in the beginning because they know that they have to lure you in. But after time, they start getting comfortable with you, And some people will say, oh, well, when you get comfortable with a friend, you can do like friendly banter and stuff. Which, not saying that's wrong. It's not like you have to be like all peaches and cream super nice to each other all the time. But like, it gets to the point where sometimes if that person is like insecure, then they're gonna feel like, and this is like the part behind it where I really started thinking about things differently. Where this is when I really started to understand jealousy. So when you think about it like this, think about like the logic behind it, and most of this is like subconscious. So obviously the friend is not thinking of this like directly, but that doesn't mean that their actions are not intentional, even if it's subconsciously. They may consciously not realize what their intentions are, but the reason why I know it's an intentional subconsciously is because it's a consistent pattern of behavior, and there's certain like key markers, which I'll go over in this video. Think about it like this. Here's the logic behind it, right? Jealousy, like I said, is a very normal emotion, but when you approach jealousy with shame, which most people tend to do by default, and I think that's societally induced. There's a lot of societal conditioning that people don't even realize. Like the obvious stuff, you know, like obviously like gender roles and other things like that, people like clock. But sometimes there's like societal conditioning that you don't even really think about. And it's like subtle things, right? Where they try to condition you to see certain things as negative or positive. That it didn't have to have that kind of connotation. It could have been neutral. Like jealousy could have been seen as a neutral emotion, just like anything else. But because of the way that jealous people are portrayed in media and other things like that, jealousy is seen as immature or wrong. And a lot of people carry a lot of shame with it. And so they don't process it properly. And when you don't process your emotions properly, they kind of eat you up on the inside. Hence, you know, why I pinch my face. Because obviously, you know, I have a lot of like knowledge on this stuff that is not just from my personal experiences. It's also from listening to other people speak on their experiences with this. But just because I know stuff doesn't mean that I'm perfect, and I'm still struggling with stuff, and I'm still struggling to process my emotions. So, but you know, I have faith that I'll get there. Like I know that I'm working on getting better at emotional regulation and stuff. And even before I started to become more conscious about these things, my way of like venting out emotions typically is like internal. So when I don't process like very negative emotions properly, or sometimes even positive, they tend to just make me implode rather than explode. So it's very, very rare for me to explode. It has happened a couple times, but I was pushed to the edge by very abusive people. But you know, that's in the past. But typically, what I'll do is I'll implode. So I'll just kind of like do something to self-sabotage, and it's a habit that I find comforting because it keeps me in a small box where I feel safe and where I feel like, okay, well, if I feel like somebody is, which now I know the word would be jealous, right? But you know, in the past, especially when I was dealing with these kind of like jealous, abusive types of friendships and stuff, I would feel like, well, if I do these self-sabotaging things, just pinching my face is just one example. There'll be other things that I could bring up maybe, but like if I do self-sabotaging things to like minimize myself or like halt or reverse my progress in terms of self-esteem or anything like that, then the person will stop being jealous of me and they will stop emotionally abusing me, essentially. But this was all subconscious, of course. Like I say, a lot of these things that I speak on, they sound crazy when you think about somebody consciously, intentionally planning this stuff. But most of this happens in the subconscious. And this is why it actually is okay to like read between the lines with things and to be very analytical with social interactions, because a lot of times people will say things like, oh, it's not that deep or stuff like that, because they want to be able to, you know, go unchecked, of course. Because obviously they're going to say that. It's not even something where I'm like trying to moralize it or be like, oh, wow, you're such a bad person. Like, you know what I mean? You're trying to gaslight me out of like what I'm noticing. It's more like, well, obviously they would do that. You know, it's strategic. So it's not, I'm not saying that making everything logical is like the best approach. Obviously, I'm not the most perfect with emotional regulation, but, you know, considering how much, you know, like rejection, like, you know, obviously because of autism, how much social rejection I faced, you know, I feel like I'm doing pretty well given my situation. Like, obviously, you know, things could be worse too, but, you know, I don't like to focus on that. I don't want to focus on things being worse because I want things to get better. But obviously, you know, like feeling rejected and stuff, it's not fun. But the best thing I can do is like to find a way to kind of like get myself to emotional safety, and then once I'm there, then process my emotions. So this is why I like to stick with like a logical approach to these things. I know it sounds cold and it's a little bit like disconnected and it doesn't seem right, but it's like the best solution I can think of for now, just because it's like it can be overwhelming to constantly be like fully expressing my emotions all the time. Like it can get to be too much sometimes, and I get a little lost, and sometimes I'll even forget like what the source of the emotion was, and it just makes things a little worse. So this is why I like to stick with just being as logical as possible and just trying to treat it like, yes, what that person said or did may have hurt me, but just remember that they did it because of certain things in their subconscious that they think will benefit them, that they think doing these actions will benefit them, but it really wouldn't. So they see so obviously, I feel like I attracted these kinds of people because of my willingness to dim my light, as they say. It's just a term essentially meaning like not shining too bright, like not being too proud of yourself or too content with your own company. Like so basically, even though I'm the nice version of it in this dynamic, I'm basically just like them. So kind of like attracts like. So I'm not comfortable with shining bright or like being proud of myself or being like content with just like not gloating to the point where it comes across as insecure, because there's obviously a difference, right? But like being content with speaking highly of myself without needing like approval from others or without needing permission to do so and things like that. So stuff like that, or even with like feeling comfortable in my own skin without the need to work so hard all the time. Like I don't need to like work or do anything super difficult just to prove myself. Like I'm just content, even though I'm not like super accomplished, I'm content. You know what I mean? And I don't feel the need to like compare myself to other people and stuff. These kind of things are imposed on people, the need to compare yourself. I feel like most people start out not needing to, but then other people will impose that need to compare yourself onto others. So that's pretty interesting. So I guess that can lead me towards the main point of the video. I obviously, as usual, I get very sidetracked. If you're watching these videos, you should know by now. I don't know if I'm ever gonna fix that unless I'm just straight up reading a script. Which I'm gonna make the inscription video soon. I think I'm ready. I need to work on some like stills and stuff and like work on some assets, and then I just need to play inscription again because I deleted my last like playthrough of it. So I'm gonna play it, and then that's gonna be my first like video about a game I like, and then I'm just gonna do a bunch of fucking like game reviews and stuff and like different kinds of content. So I'm gonna branch off soon. I'm making these videos because honestly, like, to stay consistent in an easy way, and also it kind of helps like to process my emotions, and also to just get my like worldview and like my thoughts on like interactions between people out there and like things that I've noticed. Okay, so it just popped back in my head like, okay, where I wanted to take this video. So I'm just gonna let myself flow freely, and then I'll try to structure this video a little better. You know me, I'll insert some like text or something. Okay, so what I've noticed with people who are jealous, the ways that you can tell that it's jealousy is they may go, and this is I say this because this has happened to me quite often. They'll probably go for like a moral sort of argument with things in a specific way. So what I mean is, for example, and I'm just going to use this example because it's very easy. I know I bring this topic up a lot, and I'm sorry if it sounds like annoying or whatever that I'm like constantly bringing it up. It's just that it's like I'm going based off of like personal experience. So this can be with different things. It's not just like, and I'm talking about pretty privilege and stuff. So this can be with different things, because this could also be with like wealth, status, social skills, accomplishments, intelligence. Or like likability to certain people. Like I already said social skills, but there's like different kinds of social skills. So you might have two people who are very skilled socially, but one person gives off a different kind of charm than the other. And then that can create jealousy too, because that person is not realizing that maybe they have different aspects of their personality they're not in touch with. And then seeing this person who is in touch with that side will bring out jealousy. So you see how deep it goes? And like I said, when you understand that jealousy is just the compass pointing you towards your true desires, or one of your many true desires, you start to realize that it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just, damn, it triggers a strong emotion. This is why jealousy is intense. It triggers a strong emotion because you start to think like that person has something I want, like, and it's like it's intense, and that's how you know you really want that thing. You know what I mean? But the thing is, just like sometimes when people take jealousy to the next step, which is envy, they're focused more on taking the other person down rather than actually accomplishing that thing in their own life. And then it gives them the illusion that if they take the other person down, they can replace them. But it's really not true. You can't really replace somebody. You have to figure out how that thing that you're jealous of in them can be created organically in your own life, using your own mind and your own resources that are available to you. But try to recreate that. But you have to really like be creative with it and like manifest it in a different way. Like, it's not going to look exactly like it is for the other person, but you can have a different version of that. And just don't think in a hierarchical way where their version is better than yours. Like, it doesn't have to be hierarchical. It can just be like more like a web, or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just different ways of expressing that desire, or, you know, that accomplishment, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that it's just a different way of looking at it, where the control is back in your hands. You know what I mean? It's more realistic because you're not trying to replace somebody else. But a lot of people are too ashamed to process their jealousy. But it's not like the jealousy goes away when they like push it down or bury it or deny it, and it sort of just comes out as bitterness or discontent, or even sometimes self-sabotage. Sometimes people react to this feeling like with a sense of pride, and so they'll be like, oh well, because it's a very painful emotion when not processed properly, because pain is a motivator. Even if you think about it in terms of like evolution, pain is like a motivator. And, you know, humans, we're animals, and, you know, we've evolved and stuff, but we're also highly intelligent creatures, and so we have more goals than just survival. So we're in an interesting crossroads between like consciousness and like natural instinct. And so a lot of times our natural instincts don't exactly know how to react with our desires that come from our individual unique consciousnesses. So we all have slightly different ways of thinking and desires. And so, you know, we'll be like, oh, well, or, you know, like our natural instincts will use pain as a motivator, and we'll use like, you know, comfortable emotions as a way of letting us know that we can stay in whatever situation we're in and just be comfortable and content, right? But obviously, it's not exactly perfect. So sometimes it's using pain as a motivator to get you to like move, and to like, obviously, you know, when you're hungry you eat, right? So when you feel this pain from jealousy, it's trying to get you to move. That pain is trying to push you to go hunt, right? Because when you're hungry, you're all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need to hunt. I seriously need to get some food, right? So it's the same with like jealousy, where it's painful because it's trying to push you to do the uncomfortable or intense things, or, you know, difficult things that will get you to that true happiness. So it's sort of like, in my opinion, when I think about it, it's sort of like your, what's I say? How do I say it? Like your natural instincts and your consciousness, as well as your subconscious, kind of like joining forces and trying to get you to go towards your true desires. But the problem is that I believe a lot of societal norms, and I'm not like super conspiratorial where I think there's like lizards or whatever that are like pulling the strings. I just think humans naturally are very flawed creatures, and naturally, as a collective, we tend to build society in ways that will, okay, so when people build society, they want to make it so that there's like this competition that's constantly like, there's like an undercurrent of competition constantly going on. So a lot of times people will use morality, and they'll try and like manipulate you through morality to stay as non-competition, if that makes sense. So this I think saying that kind of really I was able to get my point out, because I know I go all over the place because I'm like brainstorming out loud basically. So essentially what I mean to say is, I think this is what happened a lot with previous friendships that I had, to where they had this feeling of insecurity and jealousy around me, typically because of my appearance, which they made that clear, but I was kind of blocking it out. Even though my subconscious was trying to like let me know, I was always blocking it out because I did not want to accept the fact that appearance mattered that much. Like, I always knew it mattered, but like I always wanted to like block out that idea that like appearance matters to the point where it will influence your social life. I didn't want to accept it. Like it because accepting that would make me feel very depressed. And even though I'm considered to be one of the people who has pretty privilege, like if anybody is like listening to this or, you know, whatever, watching this, and then you have struggled with like feeling attractive and feeling desirable, the thing about it, like the catch-22, and I'm not saying that like if you've been made to feel ugly your whole life that you don't have a right to be like upset and like pissed off at the world and like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that you don't have a right to feel that way, because obviously it's fucked up and corrupt, right? But the thing is like, it's not really much better on the other side. Especially if you don't have much social power outside of pretty privilege. Like if you're like poor, or, you know, maybe you're like neurodivergent like me, and then you felt stupid your whole life. And, you know, people will lean into that because, like I said, there's always an undercurrent of competition in society where people just want to, like, how do I say it? Like, people just want to, like, make it so that, like, okay, so here, okay. I'm going to finish that point that I was starting on, and then I'm going to, like, because I want to quickly say this. Okay, so for example, with, like, with pretty privilege, right? Because this is my personal experience. So I was friends with people who, personally, I would never really give a shit about how they looked, right? So I wasn't thinking, I would never, this is not my default. I had to be like trained by mostly these people, mostly these old friends to think this way. They were trying to brainwash me and rewire my natural way of thinking to think about looks all the time. I was resistant towards it. I really didn't want to think about it. But they would say things like, well, I had this one friend, right? So she was more into like leftist stuff, which, you know, I guess I lean more left. But I wouldn't, like, identify as a leftist. I'm not too into politics, mostly because I just find it overwhelming and kind of depressing. And it just feels like something, like, I don't have control over. So, like, why, like, care? Like, maybe one day when I have, like, more money, and then I'll try and research and, like, donate towards things that, like, I can will actually, like, cause positive change or stuff. At least try. So I suppose I can do that. But I don't really want to, like, be involved in, like, politics online and just, like, you know, like, and obviously it's called, like, fucking something, it's called a letter now, but, you know, like, Twitter, I still call it Twitter, because it's just a more unique name, but, you know, like, be, like, a Twitter warrior, and, you know, just all of that shit, like, I'd rather just, like, focus on my life and stuff, and obviously I still have my, like, views, like, politically, but it just doesn't seem like I can really do much. Especially with the fact that I don't have a lot of money and I don't have a lot of power, like social influence or anything. Like, it just doesn't seem like something I should really, like, dabble in, because, like, what am I gonna do? But whatever. That's besides the point. But yeah, obviously, you know, I have my beliefs, whatever. But, and then obviously, you know, she was very adamant about her leftist views and stuff, which is totally fine. But where it's not okay, and where I started to, like, realize something was wrong, but back then I didn't have the words for it, was when I had told her about my dating preferences, right? Which I'm not gonna say it online, but, you know, I'm not really ashamed of my dating preferences anymore. But I just realized, like, you know, just keep it a secret. Just, you know, it's like keeping your hand, you know, your cards to yourself and not revealing your hand. Like, you probably shouldn't tell people off the cuff, you know, keep people guessing and stuff. But not that it's that important, but, you know, I do have a pretty, like, strict dating preference, right? And, you know, it's not like my dating preference comes from, like, I don't know where it came from. Like, literally when I was, like, 11, I was already, like, attracted to, like, a specific look in guys. And it's basically only, like, based off of looks. Like, it's, which I don't see personally an issue with, because when you think about it, like, logically, like, okay, and this has always been my perspective on it, right? My perspective has always been, like, okay, so if you think somebody is attractive, then and you like their personality, then that would be a really good idea to date that person. Obviously, if they like you back, duh. And so, like, but there needs to be that combination of things where you like their personality and you think that they're attractive, right? And then obviously multiple factors, like similar goals, you know, lifestyles and things. Like, obviously it gets very complicated, right? But ooh. Okay, so with that being said, obviously if you like somebody's personality, right, but you think that you don't think that they're attractive, right? Because they're not your type. No matter what your type is physically, obviously it needs not be said. Only the only preference I wouldn't consider is like if somebody likes children, duh, obviously. But I feel like just getting that stupid fucking like non-argument out of the way, because obviously that can be said, like, oh, because what I'm trying to say is like I feel like people can have whatever preferences they want and it doesn't matter. Like I said, it needs to be consenting adults, duh, get that out of the way. But obviously I think that it's perfectly fine, like, to have whatever fucking preferences you want, because in my opinion it's like, for somebody to have access to you like sexually or something is like it's very like sacred. You should always have a decision, even if your decision is seen as like morally wrong by other people and stuff, right? And then this friend that I had, right? I was already starting to be like kind of like annoyed with her because she would often like call me like very drunk or like drunk and high, so like crossfaded at the same time. And she would like just vent to me about like stupid shit. And like she was like very miserable because she was constantly seeking validation from like men and like, you know, other people. And then she was like sad that she didn't have social skills. But the reason why she didn't have social skills was completely cut myself off and didn't finish my point. Once again, as I do. Okay, so what I was trying to say here was the reason why she didn't have social skills was because she was very pushy about her beliefs to the point where it was very off-putting. Even when she tried to hide it, she was always very like displeased and uncomfortable by everyone because everyone did not match up to her moral standards. So she would go from like being a people pleaser to like looking down at you because you're not as like leftist as she is. And it was so annoying. She was like impossible to deal with, and so she pushed everybody away because of that. And she was also addicted to arguing, which most people don't really want to argue, especially about politics. Like, it's not even that I disagree with you, is that I disagree with your personality of like wanting to dominate and control my mind and even control my sexuality, because she was angry. Like, think about it. She was angry at the fact that I had preferences that were different from hers and that she did not morally agree with, which, first of all, like I said, I don't even ascribe to the belief that any morals can be ascribed to personal preferences, like in dating or sexuality or whatever. Like, it's such a personal thing. Even if it is influenced by some kind of trauma or some kind of thing, like, that's your own personal business to work through it. It's nobody's business to tell you that your preferences are wrong or that you should date this other type of person, because like, it's nobody's business to tell you that. It should never be guilted or forced upon you. Like, that's a huge thing that I've noticed is like a huge trend, like not just like in leftist spaces, but like in general. Like, it's just so weird. Like, it's none of your business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people will ask you what your preferences are and then like shame you for it. Like, it's so stupid. I just don't tell people anymore. But it's just very bizarre. Nobody really liked this girl and she didn't have any friends because she was just very like unpleasant to be around. Like, she was just very pushy, very controlling, very insecure, and it's just, the vibes were completely off. But obviously, instead of like working on improving her personality, she would put the blame on everybody else. So God bless. Not very similar to me, where I'm just very socially awkward naturally, even though I try to be very kind. And when I try to be kind, perhaps people see that as like snaky or weird, or they don't trust me because my kindness is paired with strange mannerisms and like weird faces and an inability to make eye contact. And I'm not trying to play the victim. I understand that even though I have autism, these kind of things can put people off because they can feel like they can't trust me, and that's fully understandable, honestly. I kind of want to get better at masking just as a social strategy. It's still going to be exhausting, I am aware, but like, and I'm going to be okay with not masking in front of certain people, but I feel like I should try and get better at masking just so that I can have more like social fluidity and flexibility. But that's besides the point. Went on a bit of a tangent there. Okay, so when it comes to like this friend, right? I think that instead of, for the same reasons that, even though we related on both being socially awkward, I think that instead of, because I don't know, she could be autistic, I don't know. She used to say stuff like in high school when I didn't even think I was autistic or anything. I would just thinking I was stupid or something. But I remember she used to say about how she thinks that she's autistic, and she would say it, but she would say it in kind of like a, like, I didn't really like care too much at the time, but she would do it in what you would call more like Like, you know that stereotype of like girls on TikTok that will talk about how they have autism, but they'll do it in a way that's like kind of glorifying it or making it kind of like shallow and just being like, "Ooh, look, I'm stimming," and they'll make it kind of like quirky and something. Like, those kind of people don't really make me mad, but they do tend to make other people mad, so I am aware of that. And she would play into that too. Like, she would do like random like quirky things that were kind of shallow in hindsight, like just things like for attention mostly. Which I don't know, maybe she noticed that I had strange quirks in my personality and stuff, and she was trying to imitate me. People who are jealous tend to go for imitation sometimes, but it comes across a little uncanny, almost like a skinwalker trying to like imitate, trying to like replicate human behavior, but coming across uncanny. That's almost how that comes across to me. But okay, I know I'm going on a million tangents. That's what you signed up for watching this video, okay? Okay, so when it comes to like when it comes to this girl that I'm thinking of, she had argued with me one day on Discord, of course on Discord. Discord is like the hub of toxicity, but I say that and then I plan on like going back on there and looking for art friends, but I'm gonna be very picky about my art friends. Anyway, but like new art friends is what I want. Okay, but like when it comes to like this argument we had, essentially she was arguing because my preference, you know, it's for a certain like race of guys or whatever. I'm not gonna say what because it's personal, but yeah, basically she was just trying to say like how it's like wrong, like it's like morally wrong for me to have that. And then at the time, like I wasn't like very like socially aware or anything, so I would take, if somebody, and this would work on me, and it makes me so embarrassed, but it's, you know, people who have autism, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes we tend to be a little bit gullible because we tend to think that people are not lying, or we tend to take people's words at face value. So this is why this is such a strange shift for me in this way of thinking, but it has been very like beneficial to me because I'm starting to realize that people will play power games, and what they'll do is they'll try to manipulate you using different methods in order to gain a sense of power over you, even if it's artificial, because really when you just manipulate a friend, you don't really get much out of it. Like, it's not like you get any financial reward or anything, but it's like an ego boost. Like it's like a stroke for your ego, because like, ooh, look, I manipulated her, I made her feel bad over something that's not actually bad, but because I'm jealous of her, then I get to like have this feeling of power over her because I put her in a lower mood. Like, I had a lot of friends that would do that to me. So the reason why I know that she was jealous of me was a lot of key things. A lot of times she would look at me with disgust. She would never compliment my appearance, but she would say things, obviously because she was more leftist, like a little bit more of like the obsessive leftist type. You know the type, like where they're just like, how do I say, always angry and always moralizing things, and then also always antagonizing people, even on like people who agree with them politically. Like, they always try to find a reason to antagonize people. And this is the reason why I think that she was struggling to make friends in early college, right? Because she was like basically around the same age as me. And obviously we both had like we were both kind of socially awkward. And like I said, I don't know if she was autistic or not. In my opinion, she did not come across as autistic, especially considering the way that she very much was focused on like societal norms, in like a way that she was like very emotionally invested. Most autistic people that were like dead ass autistic like me that I have come across, we tend to like in different ways. Obviously there's still individuals with individual personalities despite having autism. I always want to like re-emphasize that because I don't want to make it seem like every autistic person acts the same or whatever, but typically with autistic people, what you tend to notice is that we tend to like reject societal norms unless we have a specific logical reason not to. And this is why I had to like reframe my mindset and understand the logic behind certain things that happen that feel like pointless and random. Like for me, obviously like pretty privilege, I was never able to accept that as a thing because I always saw it as very stupid and pointless. So the ways that you can undermine your pretty privilege is by either hanging out with, especially, you know, obviously I'm going to speak as a girl, but you know, if this applies to you as a dude, you know, take what wisdom you can from this, I guess. But, you know, as a girl, right? A huge thing that will undermine your pretty privilege, like no matter how close you are to achieving like the beauty standard in your area or whatever, things that will undermine your pretty privilege are hanging out with people who are not at your level of attractiveness, or hanging out with people who may be like close to your level, but they have like these like jealous tendencies or these competitive tendencies, right? Where they see like, they have like a scarcity mindset, where they see like, oh, like there can only be one attractive person in the friend group, or like, you know, this and that. So it's like that competitive type of thing, because people don't, when considering pretty privilege, people don't only look at your appearance alone. Obviously your appearance plays a very important role, but they also kind of look at your like mannerisms, the way you speak, the vocabulary that you choose, your body language, you know, your posture and things like that. And when you're being like mentally berated by these people, like, and they're like using different manipulation tactics to put you down and make you feel like bad about yourself, or to feel guilty, or to put you in a state of feeling shame or guilt, or like feeling like inadequate or inferior, they take little jabs at you like over a long period of time. So like they lure you in with being kind in the beginning, or maybe even like gassing up your ego in the beginning and like going for like overly complimenting you in the beginning, and then over time they will like slowly but surely chip away at your self-esteem. And the reason why they do that is because they subconsciously, sometimes even consciously, narcissists tend to do this more consciously, and you know, sociopath as well, psychopath, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to, whatever. Okay. What they tend to do, those people tend to do it more consciously, but you know, most people who are just struggling to process jealousy, they tend to do these things more subconsciously. So even if you confront them about it, they don't even really recognize their own jealousy, and so they kind of just like process it in a more like defensive way, where they'll find some sort of excuse, or they'll like twist the narrative, or you know. But like I said, like this would work on me back then because I had autism. Because I have autism, but now obviously I know that I have autism, so that's like one insecurity out of the way, where I know that I'm not broken or stupid or inferior. I know that it's, you know, just, it's something that I'm dealing with, where my mind just works differently, and so I have to like approach these things differently. So it's just, it's very valuable knowledge. I'm really grateful that I was able to get diagnosed like that. It's very like, you know, it's a blessing, honestly. But anyway, so like about like this kind of like thing that she would do or whatever. Let me try to get back on track because I went on a million tangents. Okay, so specifically with this argument that we had, she was trying to make me feel like it's like morally wrong to have like a preference for guys that are different race from me, right? And the thing is that sorry, I was drinking water. Me and her were both like kind of like half white, half Hispanic and stuff. You know, because we grew up in Miami and stuff, so most people there at least have a little drop of like some Hispanic like nationality in them. As for me, you know, I'm Cuban and Colombian, and so, you know, but obviously, you know, I look white to most people, so people don't really think about it, and I don't really care too much. I just, obviously, like, my culture is more like I have little things from like Cuban culture that influence me, but for the most part, like, my culture is influenced mostly by like the internet and like, you know, niche like subgroups and fandoms and stuff. Like, I'm not really too into like cultural things that are like outside of like that, I guess, because I'm like a massive nerd. So I guess I would just consider myself very culturally American, and then also like raised on the internet. So like I don't really think about it too much. I'm not too like invested into my own culture. I think it's cool, you know, I like some Spanish music and stuff, but I'm not like super like into it. I guess I don't like identify with it very heavily. And I guess neither did she. She was more so like into like Tumblr stuff, you know, like she was into like more like Tumblr stuff, and then I guess that's how she went into being more like extreme leftist, which, like I said, I wouldn't have an issue with if she wasn't using like leftism as a sort of like excuse to be like as like a sort of excuse to feel morally superior, to say like things to justify her jealousy, which is what it comes down to. So so essentially, she would say things, and this was before this argument we had about like my preferences, which is such a strange thing to think about in hindsight. Like, it's very strange that, you know, someone would try to argue you out of your preferences. Like, to me, it's such a personal thing. Like, it's such a breach and a crossing of somebody's boundaries that I don't understand how you can do. Even like me as an autistic person, like, I don't understand how you can do that without having a moment of self-awareness where you realize what you're doing. Like, you're trying to control somebody else's sexuality, essentially. But I'll get more into that later. So, and I'll talk about like the moralizing aspect of it that she used, which was very bizarre. Like, it was very like extreme and it was kind of insane. But and it kind of stuck with me because it was just like a weird, like, it was a very strange insight into like the truth of her mindset and stuff, and the way that she viewed me and the way that she viewed like dating in general. And yeah, so I definitely want to get more into that. Like, it was very interesting. I learned a lot of like I mined a lot of psychological gold from that interaction, so I think that's why it stuck with me. Also, just the fact that it was very uncomfortable, but you know, I learned a lot from it. But okay, so she would say things throughout our friendship, because I knew her for a very long time. Like, I think I knew her from like 6th grade up until like early college, and then I just cut her off because I couldn't take it anymore. Like, she was just so like, she would just berate me with these morals and stuff. And so how do I say this? So she would say things like, she would never compliment my appearance directly, but her mom, because I would visit her house sometimes, and like I went to her birthday party once, and her mom would compliment my looks to the point where it was a little bit uncomfortable. And I felt a little bit flattered, but I felt a little like uncomfortable. Like, she was like, wow, you're just so beautiful or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's cool. Thanks, I guess. But she was like trying to like say it like in front of this girl to like make the girl jealous. Like, the mom was like trying to like triangulate, like using me. And it was so weird. Like, I didn't fuck with that. And then I found out that the girl's mom was like, what's it called? The girl's mom was like saying things like, oh, you need plastic surgery to fix your nose and stuff like that. So obviously the mom was putting a lot of venom in her head, and you know, obviously that's why she was always comparing her looks to mine and stuff. But she would say things to me, or she would never directly compliment my looks, but she would say things to me like, oh, you have very Eurocentric features. So at the time, I thought it was very odd that she said that, and she said it with a very bitter tone. Like, it was like with venom, like on her face and like on her tongue. Like, it was like very like evil eye type of thing, which it literally came out of nowhere. Like, mind you, I never wore makeup. I literally never did my hair. My hair always looked like a rat's nest. I was like mega tomboy mode when I was in high school and like middle school, high school, and early college. Like, I never got out of that until like recently, where, you know, I do my hair and makeup now. And I see the value in it because, you know, it gives you social power and stuff. But back in the day, and also it's just kind of fun. But back in the day, I never really thought that that was even like an option for me. Like, it never crossed my mind to like do beauty hobbies. But I remember like I didn't even fucking try. So the way I saw it was like, if I don't do my hair and makeup, and I think this was going on in my subconscious, because like, remember, I'm always thinking about what's going on subconsciously with people, even myself. So I think in my subconscious I was thinking, well, if I just don't do my hair and makeup and I just like dress like super tomboyish, you know, and I just like I never dated, I never wanted to like have a boyfriend, or like I was never attracted to any guys in my school or anything. And I just like would always just talk about like, I don't know, like I would just talk about like nerdy stuff. I would talk about FNAF a lot, like Five Nights at Freddy's. I would talk a lot about like Pokemon, or like my OCs and like drawing and stuff. And I would keep it very like childish, and like my personality was like very tomboyish. I was very comfortable with expressing like the masculine sides of myself and stuff. I wasn't ever trying to force myself to be feminine. And even with all of that, it would still trigger this kind of dynamic with like other friends that are girls, which is very like bizarre. Like it's like there's literally no escape. Like I did everything personality wise and expression wise to give off the vibe of, hey, I'm not trying to compete with you, because I think my subconscious always kind of knew that there's this crazy like jealous competition that women partake in, and I kind of learned that like middle school-ish, and I wanted no part of it. Obviously the media tries to push that. Media tries to push that, and then you just kind of see it play out with like the way that girls interact and stuff, and I seriously just wanted no part of it. And so I just looked for friends who wanted to talk about like my interests with me, like just like the nerdy stuff that I wanted to talk about. And this friend that I had, we didn't have much in common with nerdy interests, but you know, she was just, I guess I was just friends with her just because I don't even know why I was friends with her, to be honest. I guess I would just be friends with anybody who I thought like wanted to be friends with me. I was always that kind of person who was like, oh, if somebody wants to be friends with me, why not? The more friends, the better, you know? Who cares? Like, I just had a nonchalant view on it. when, you know, after everything I've learned now and the reflection that I've done, I realize that sometimes people will keep you in your life just to like have you close so that they can like siphon your energy or like plot on how to take you down. Like literally just for existing. And this is how you know it's jealousy or envy. Sometimes it can escalate to the point of envy, right? And especially with things like, oh yeah, I forgot to get into this. So the thing that she said where you have very Eurocentric features, right? Like facial features. So she said that to me, right? And you know, obviously with her moral system, you know, her being more like on the extreme side of leftist or whatever stuff, it was very like intentional that she said that. And at the time I remember thinking like, what a weird way of talking about my appearance. And I just said, really? I do? Yeah, it was a weird interaction because I didn't understand why, you know, she would say that, right? And essentially now, you know, in hindsight, reflecting on it, so the reason why she said that was because she was trying to make me feel guilty for my beauty, essentially. So the way that I look. So she was trying to make me, so this is a very interesting like psychological concept. And I think with like leftist girls that act like her, not all leftists obviously, I would consider myself more left leaning, but I like to think critically about things. I don't like to just have my political beliefs based off of guilt. Obviously I made a couple of videos called Guilt Over Privilege is Unproductive. Like I don't think it's good to just, oh, I feel so guilty for having any kind of privilege, so I should just like bend over backwards for the world and stuff. Like I don't think that's smart. I don't think the world is going to do the same for you if you do that. Even those people who you consider to be like less privileged than you, if you allow yourself to be a people pleaser for them, there could be people in those groups who are very morally apprehensible and they'll take full advantage of you and leave you like hanging basically. So it's not very smart to do that, but you should always be okay with preserving yourself, preserving your safety, and allowing yourself the opportunity to thrive, even though things are corrupt and, you know, everyone should have a fair shot, but they don't. That doesn't mean that you should intentionally self-sabotage yourself just to feel like morally superior to other people. Like it's a really warped worldview. But even with things like that, I literally like, obviously, like, you know, I'm happy that I have like, you know, attractive features and stuff because it gives you a lot of benefits and stuff. And also, you know, I just like my face, you know, it's me, it's, you know, whatever. There's no reason to like hate my own features and stuff. But and I wish everybody had the ability to like love their features without all of the shame that the world tries to put on it, but that's besides the point. When it comes to this girl, right, she was trying to use a moral system that she felt was like, that she felt resonated with her like worldview and stuff. So obviously, you know, being more leftist and stuff and being more alternative too, and like rejecting beauty standards and stuff, obviously, because, you know, she was traumatized by her mom imposing beauty standards on her. You know, telling her she needs like a fucking rhinoplasty at a very young age, like in high school. So she did not meet beauty standards, at least like, you know, like American beauty standards, or just like in general, I guess. And so she really wanted to like impose this guilt over my appearance. So like she wanted me to like subconsciously associate my features as being Eurocentric. And then, you know, a couple of days later, and like in a different conversation, she would say things about how like, you know, like white people are evil, or like, you know, like she'll just talk about like racism, but in a way that's very like moralizing to the point where it's like obviously you can talk about like the evil things white people have done. I'm not saying like you gotta like pretend like nothing bad happened, but it was this thing rather than like, you know, analyzing society and like, you know, like trying to be more like socially aware and like aware of history and stuff. It was more so like this idea like if you're white you should feel guilty. Like it was always that thing that she was trying to like impose, and she was trying to impose it on me, and obviously it kind of affected my subconscious a little bit, but it never resonated with me that much because I just kind of thought it was weird, but I would just let her do it because I was like, okay, whatever. So she was trying to like get me to associate my beauty with being morally wrong, but it never worked because I wasn't even thinking about myself as beautiful. Because I didn't really look in the mirror often as a kid either. I don't know what it was. I didn't care about appearances. Like, I did not care. Like, I'm trying to, like, I know it's easy to say that and then people don't believe you because it's like, oh, everyone cares. Genuinely, like, a lot of neurodivergent people don't care as much about appearance. Because it's like, we have a natural tendency to, like, reject societal norms because it just doesn't feel like, it feels meaningless, kind of. It doesn't feel like, there isn't, like, a direct benefit that you get unless you know how to, like, unless you know how to use it properly. Because, like, pretty privilege, in my opinion, is like a tool. You can have it, but if you don't know how to use it properly, it's not going to do anything for you. And my pretty privilege at the time hadn't really done much for me. I never really got the pretty privilege treatment because I didn't invest much into my looks. Like, you know, even if you have natural beauty, you still have to carry yourself a certain way, act a certain way, and play into certain stereotypes at the right time with certain people. So it's very strategic. You have to be really strategic about it, right? But I didn't even, like, realize I had this tool, and I never acknowledged it or gave a fuck. Like, I never cared about appearance. And these people who were insecure, you know, and jealous, they would force me to think about appearances. Like, they would because it was on their mind. And they were trying to make, so obviously there's different moral systems that you can use. And this girl was trying to use, like, leftism, right? So it's like, I reject beauty standards, so you should too. Even though I was not wearing makeup or doing anything to participate in, like, beauty culture. It was literally just my natural facial features that pissed her off, which is insane. It's actually fucking crazy. It was literally the way I came out the womb that, like, made her mad and made her feel like she needed to humble me. So it was like, I didn't think I was that attractive, but apparently I was, enough to piss this girl off. So anyway, so with that in hindsight, then I think about, like, the argument that, like, randomly happened because she was trying to force me to like some white guy that she had a crush on or whatever. Like, she had a type for, like, kind of like skater boy type white guys that like smoked weed and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. I never shamed her for her type or anything. To me, it was just like, okay, you know, that's, you like what you like. I don't really give a shit. Like, I didn't care. Like, it was just, oh, you know, like, I was happy for her and stuff. But it was weird because she was trying to force me to, like, find these guys, the same guys that she found attractive, right? And I was like, I literally just don't find him attractive. And he was like, oh, is it because he's white? And I'm like, I mean, yeah. But, like, that doesn't mean that he's, like bad. Like, I didn't have, like, the words to explain it to her. I didn't know how to, because it's not something that you should have to explain. Like, the thing is, like, obviously, just because I don't, like, find somebody sexually attractive, it doesn't mean that I see them as inferior or, like, a bad person or, like unworthy. I just don't find them attractive. Like, that's all it is. I'm literally just one person, right? But the reason why she got so angry and she cared so much and why she went for this, like, moral guilting type of argument is because she saw me as somebody with social power inherently because of the way that I look. And because I have this privilege and this social power, I have to, like, you know, with power, with great power comes great responsibility or whatever. Like, I have to validate her type in men because if I don't like it, it makes her feel like shit about herself because she feels like, oh, well, I'm not getting these, the kind of men that she wants. Because it's this sort of thing where girls like this feel like, okay, well, the type of guys that I like, or the type of guys that I have access to that I'm dating, you need to like them too because you're the one with the pretty privilege and the social power. And if you like these guys and I'm getting them, I feel like I'm in your league and I get, like, a hit of power and I get to rub it in your face like, ooh, look at this guy that I bagged. You can't get that. So it's insane because when you think about it, oftentimes she would use leftist arguments for this sort of, like, underlying, like, insecurity that she was trying to, like, cope with. But she would use, like, leftist arguments. And it's so bizarre because it would be paired with, like, this emotional dysregulation and this, like, constant drinking and doing drugs and, like, calling me inventing and, like, this, like, oh, guys aren't giving me attention, and then, like, flipping and, like, bragging about how many guys she slept with. And it was like this mess. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I don't understand, like, why is this my problem? Like, why do I need to feel guilty over this? I literally was not dating. I wasn't attracted to any guys. Like, I have my type, but I wasn't, like seeing any guys that were, like, attractive, even if they were my type. I just wasn't attracted to them still. And I wasn't really too worried about dating or anything. Like, I think a couple times I messaged her, I said, damn, I'm so lonely. Like, You know, I wish I had a boyfriend. Like, damn, it gets so lonely sometimes, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's whatever. Like, I would get over it. Like, I would have my moments, but I would get over it, right? And I remember when I said that, she, like, was so mean about it. Like, out of no, like, you would expect, like, your friend to be supportive. And she was so fucking mean. She was like, oh, well, you know what? Sometimes you have to be your own boyfriend. You just have to get over it. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is the same bitch that I let vent to me, like, on the phone, like, drunk as shit and, like, off her rocker, like, crying and screaming that, like, she's lonely and she feels, like, so ugly and guys don't want her. Like, it's so bizarre that I even put up with this. Like, it's almost like I would just, like, tune so much shit out because I was so overwhelmed by all the mental gymnastics that I would just, like, tune a lot of shit out and just, like, this is the right thing to do. I just have to be the kind one, even though I'm being treated like shit. It's so bizarre. It's weird reflecting on it. The weird thing about it is, like, so she would use, like, leftist arguments, right? But the interesting thing is, like, the crux of her problem was that she was male-centered most of the time. She was, like, very dependent on, like, male validation, or at least, like, validation from, like, patriarchal standards to feel good about herself. And then she was imposing that onto me, even though I was very much rejecting that. I was not seeking male validation or doing things for male validation, and not forced. Like, I wasn't forcing myself to. It just did not come naturally for me to do those things. And then she was trying to impose that idea onto me and then make me feel guilty for it. Like, it was the strangest thing. And the interesting thing about it, and the most ironic thing about it, is that a lot of leftist women will do this. So the interesting thing about, like, insecure leftist women, specifically the insecure types, because there's leftist women who are very secure in themselves and they understand, like, how to decenter men without, like, demonizing men, but still, like, being realistic about, like, you know, like, patriarchy and the fucked up shit in society and stuff, but, you know, not letting it, like, rule their minds and their lives and create these crazy insecurities, right? But the interesting thing about you know, leftist women, like this girl that I knew, is is that, like, they will like, you know, obviously they don't like Christianity and, like, you know, obviously, like, patriarchal systems like that, and they'll, like, demonize it and stuff like that. And the way that they act is very, very similar to, like a religious, like, conservative religious woman. Because if you listen to stories of, like, religious women, or, like, you know, girls who used to go to the church who are, like, more conventionally attractive, and this is, like, across race, like, this could be, like, any race, like, it really doesn't matter, because pretty privilege is kind of universal. So a lot of times you'll hear stories of women where they're like more conventionally attractive, and they'll go to the church, right? And they'll be in the church pretty often, and they'll have, like, really, really bad experiences with, like, more, like, conventionally unattractive women, like, really, really bad experiences. And it's because in churches, you know, like Christian churches or, you know, like other kinds of churches too, most churches are very, like, they push, like, patriarchal, like, standards and shit, right? And they push, like, onto women that, like, getting a man is, like, the most important thing. It's, like, the reason you're alive. And this is why a lot of these women will, like, behave this way, right? And some of them, they might even, like flip and, like, become super, like, hateful towards men. And either of those, like, belief systems, whether it's, like, extreme, like, people pleasing for men, or, like, extreme hatred of men, are both very, like, unrealistic for, like, men and yourself, right? Because the only reason that you hate men to that degree, obviously unless you've been, like, traumatized by men, like, that's a different story, right? But I just mean, like, in terms of, like, feeling rejected by them. If you hate them, like, because you feel like they like broke your heart, like, you have, like, a lot of bad experiences in the past with relationships and stuff, it's because you're falling for the belief, like, the patriarchal belief that, like, whether or not a man finds you attractive is, like, the most important thing. And if you get rejected, like, so what I mean to say with this, right? So these girls in the church who are more conventionally attractive, they have to put up with a lot of shit from these women. And the women will use the same manipulation tactics that often my friend would use, or not just her, because I knew a couple of other friends that were like this, but she was just the most extreme example, where they'll use these weird, like, manipulation tactics and guilting tactics to make you feel ashamed of your appearance. And they'll usually, like, come together with other women who are not conventionally attractive, and they will, like, join together and, like, say, oh yeah, we all don't like you, and they'll come up with some reason. You know what I mean? Because they, like, what's going on subconsciously there, which is why the anger never really subsides for them, is because they feel like you're a threat. and they're scared of you. You intimidate them because you threaten their sense of security, because they put their entire sense of security and value as a human being in whether or not they're attractive to men, right? And a lot of leftist women do this. And this is why they're easy prey for guys. And guys can easily, like, you know, like, manipulate them and use them and stuff. Because they think very similar to these religious women, where they reject beauty standards, not inherently like the way that I do, where I'm like, I just think it's stupid and pointless, but, you know, it's a reality of the world, so whatever, you know. If you want to play into beauty standards, just make sure you're doing it for a reason that will actually benefit you. Consider your desires. So my dad's using a pressure cleaner outside. I apologize. So consider, like, you know, why do you want to be beautiful? Is it because you think that you need to be beautiful in order to be accepted by, like, one person or, like, a group of people, or, like, an abstract concept, you know, like the patriarchy or something? So you really have to break that down. And then when you start to break that down, you start to think, well, this is a very corrupt system, but, you know, might as well use it to my advantage. So how can I use beauty standards to my advantage for my goals? So when you start to think like that, you kind of take your power back, right? But a lot of these ladies, they're afraid to even think like that, because they think more so with guilt, right? So this is what sort of connects this kind of like leftist woman that my friend was. This is what connects it very well with, like, religious women, where all of their actions are very much based on guilt, right? So they'll feel like you should feel guilty for wanting certain things, right? So they will see an attractive woman, and then they'll feel jealousy, which, like I said, you know, at the beginning of the video, jealousy is just a sign of your mind pointing you towards your true desires, right? But then they feel guilty for that desire, because patriarchy tells you have to be attractive, but also if you're attractive, you know what I mean? Like, if you're attractive, then you're an object to be used for consumption. And so these girls, you know, when they're religious, they see that more as, like, they'll be more on the man side about it, where they'll be like, oh, well, if you dress provocatively, or even if you don't dress like I said, like back in the day, I used to not wear anything girly. I would just never do my makeup. My hair was always a rat's nest, and I just did not give a fuck to act feminine. I was always, like, super, super tomboyish, right? I just did not care to be feminine. I never even tried to, like, talk to guys or impress guys. I was basically, like, 5 years old, but, like, in a high schooler's body. I did not fucking care. And it threw a lot of people off, because I was conventionally attractive, right? So a lot of times, like I was saying, like, with these religious women, even if you don't dress provocatively or, like, super sexy or anything, just the fact that you have attractive facial features or, like, a nice body shape is enough to make them, like, just hate your guts, right? Just because they're very patriarchal. And then the moment they see an attractive woman, they feel like that woman is a threat to them. The moment they see an attractive woman, they have that jealousy response, and then rather than saying, well, shit, if I feel jealous of something, you know, jealousy is, like I said, like, processing it properly. Like, jealousy is a normal emotion. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I just need to work on, you know, making myself feel as beautiful as possible. You know what I mean? Because it's an important thing. If my mind is screaming at me that this is a painful experience looking at a beautiful woman, it's probably because I desire that for myself. So I need to figure out how I can recreate it as closely as possible. Or what systems of belief that I have internalized do I need to reject, right? And then religious women will just straight up, like, not even get close to that. They'll just be super fucking, like they can't handle the shame that the jealousy brings. And like I said, that pain is like, it's like a survival instinct, where when you feel pain, it's to get you to move, right? It's to motivate you to, like, move towards something that will alleviate the pain, right? Which in this case would be, like, you know, improving your looks in whichever way you can. You know what I mean? Which that could be either, like, losing weight, getting better at makeup, styling your hair properly, whatever you need to do, right? With these religious women, they will just straight up, like, not even get to that point. They'll stay stuck on the shame part, because they deny that the shame is even there, or they'll put the shame on, like, some sort of, like, religious concept or something, or they'll project the shame from them onto the girl, right? Especially if the girl's younger, because she's more susceptible, which this is where it becomes very predatory. You know, she's more susceptible to conditioning. Like, so if there's, like, an older woman who's jealous of a younger woman, she'll like try to like impose shame onto the girl, or you know, if the girl gets like molested or something in the church, then she'll blame the girl and make her feel ashamed. And then what that does is you know, sexuality is a very, very important core aspect of your identity as a human being. You know, obviously sexuality is very important to you. It's very personal, it's very sacred, you know what I mean? There's always so much noise in my house. It's very sacred, it's very personal, you know, and consent is very, very important. So if something awful happens to you where somebody takes advantage of you without your consent, and the other person, and then the people who you look to for comfort and, you know, like guidance on how to process that trauma are telling you it was your fault, it completely fucks your head up. Like, you might think like, why the fuck would somebody do that? That's so evil, it's so awful, right? It's because this is the dark reality of what happens when you don't process your jealousy. Jealousy is a normal emotion, but when not processed properly, it can cause you to become kind of a monster, because you're thinking in survival mode, which survival mode is like a wild animal. I don't care who I have to hurt as long as I survive, right? So obviously survival mode is how wolves are able to tear animals apart with their teeth. Meanwhile, like, you thinking about tearing an animal apart with your feet, like, we eat animals all the time, but the idea of tearing an animal apart with your teeth sounds disgusting and awful. But I'm sure if you were hungry enough, you might do it. If you were hungry enough and you had no other option, you might do it. So you see what I mean by survival mode? So when you think about these ladies, they're not processing their jealousy, and it's very, very painful. So think about that like hunger that's building, right? And so you're so hungry that you get to the point that you're willing to do very awful, like inhumane shit just to satiate that hunger because it's so painful. But the thing about it is that when you have this jealousy and you're not properly processing it, you're not thinking logically about how you can actually, you know, satiate this feeling and comfort yourself properly. You're thinking just like only seeing right in front of you. You're not seeing the bigger picture. So you think like, okay, well, if I just hurt this person because she's causing this feeling, this uncomfortable feeling that I don't know what it is, it's not jealousy. It can't be jealousy. It's not jealousy. I'm not jealous. That's embarrassing. That's shameful, right? So they also have very like hierarchical thinking, where they think that like, if I admit that I'm lower on the hierarchy than this girl, then it's all over. It's all lost. There's nothing I can do. I'm screwed. When it's actually more beneficial to you to not think about hierarchies, because when you think about hierarchies too much, like, obviously there's hierarchies like that are inevitable that you can't avoid or you can't control, like, you know, class or like financial shit or whatever, or, you know, positions of authority and stuff. Obviously that exists, but I mean in terms of like internalizing the hierarchy as your value as a human being, right? If you do that, like, you're like basically like making everything way too serious. Like, you see a girl that's like more attractive than you, and like you feel like you have to like hurt her somehow, or else you're allowing yourself to be like lower on the hierarchy and pushed further down and stuff. So it's very interesting when I notice that parallel of like religious women with like this type of leftist, obviously not all leftists, but this type of girl who claims to be a leftist. Her mind is still very much stuck in patriarchy, but she's not willing to admit it, because she's every action she does is motivated by shame and guilt. So the only reason she rejects beauty standards is because she falls for the idea that like embracing beauty standards as a woman is abusive, because you have this privilege, this power that you're abusing, and you should feel ashamed of yourself and you should put yourself down, which is literally the same thing the religious woman does, right? Because a lot of religious women are traumatized because they're living for the patriarchy. They're living for men. They're living for other people and not themselves, right? And then it's like when you do this shit to yourself, you just become so toxic to be around. And you always try to like you say and do very mean things to people, or you're very controlling over another woman's sexuality because you want that woman to sleep with men that you would sleep with, so that you can feel a sense of satisfaction when you get that man, because that man makes you feel closer to this girl who you see as higher up on the hierarchy. Like, you see how that mindset works? It's very toxic. And because you're so worried about getting higher up on the hierarchy and like, oh, well, I'm sleeping with the same guys that you sleep with, so I'm just like you. You're not better than me. Like, that mindset, like, you start to forget about like consent and like it's okay to have, you know, things that are logical. Like, Every individual is entitled to whatever preferences they want, because at the end of the day, it's their body, and they're allowed to share their body with whoever they want. It's not, there's no moral argument anybody, whether that's a leftist or a religious person or anything, can give me that I'm not allowed to have whatever standards around my sexuality that I want. Like, it's hilarious because I don't impose my standards onto other people, and yet they feel the need to do that onto me, because now in hindsight I recognize I have this sort of social power in their eyes because of the way that I look, where they have to control my sexuality, because if they do, they're winning because they're getting one over on me. So it's this always like this competitive thing where they're just going to use any manipulation tactic that they can to just get one over on you constantly and like control you. And it's very creepy. It's very uncomfortable. It's very predatory. It's very unsettling. When you're around these people, you just feel very lonely and hollow, because it's very hard to come to terms with the fact that like you're hanging out with somebody who like doesn't actually give a fuck about you as a person. They see you as this one thing, and they'll use any manipulation tactic they can to make you feel bad about yourself. So they'll try to make you feel like you're shallow because you're just the pretty shallow girl, this and that, when they're the shallow one. They are literally the shallow one, because what does it even mean to be shallow? It means that you're not going deep. They're stuck on the surface where they're not willing to process their jealousy. Everybody gets jealous. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But they're so stuck there. They find ways to, out of pride, because they don't want to admit that they're jealous. And so they do all these awful, awful, awful things and say these mean things and cross boundaries, and they feel justified. They find some sort of moral justification, whether that's religion or like leftism or something. They find some kind of moral justification for the way that they feel when it's a personal issue. Leftism is very important. You know, it's very, I agree with a lot of progressive beliefs and stuff. It's very important, but people's individual sexualities and preferences and all that shit has nothing to do with leftism. And you should never be telling somebody that, oh, your preferences are too strict, or you're not, oh, well, you can't say that. That is none of your business. Let them decide who they sleep with and who they don't. That is their business. But they can't do that, because they're so stuck in this, oh, but you have privilege and social power because you're attractive, so you saying that means that every other woman has to follow that standard. Like the argument of like beauty standards, like, oh, well, this woman who's in a position of privilege, like, I don't, like Kim Kardashian or whatever, like, oh, look at how she's influencing all these poor girls who have no control over their own actions. Like, she's such an evil, demonic person for like setting these beauty standards that are so unattainable. Like, obviously Kim Kardashian has a lot of power and privilege and a lot of influence, right? But think about it realistically. So you're saying she's not allowed to just do whatever the fuck she wants with her appearance because you are not able to like be comfortable in your own skin unless you're imitating her. Do you see the problem there? So what you're trying to say is that she has to tone down her beauty to make you more comfortable. That's stupid. She has no obligation to do that. That's fucking stupid. She doesn't have to do anything for you. She's literally just doing her thing. I know she has a lot of money and power and privilege and stuff, but listen, it's your fucking fault for putting her on the damn pedestal. Personally, the way I feel about celebrities and stuff, you know, e-celebs or like real celebs, you know, I respect them for like, you know, their hustle and stuff, but I never really put them on a pedestal, right? Like, not to the point where if I would ever like meet any kind of celebrity, like I would feel the need to humble them or something. That's really stupid. Because obviously when you try to humble somebody, it inherently kind of shows your ass that you put them on a pedestal in the first place, because you're trying to tear them down because you see them as a threat. See how that goes? So the reason why I don't put celebrities on a pedestal is because I see them more so as just like, you know, like artists or just like, you know, influencers or whatever the fuck they are, right? Just doing their thing. And I can take inspiration, but I always want to recreate things in my own way in my own life. I don't want to just, well, Kim Kardashian has this fucking curvy whatever kind of body, so I have to have the exact same makeup as her and the exact same this as her. And it's like people think like that, and then they blame the person. Like, oh, you influenced me and it's your fault that I'm insecure. It's like, it's your own fucking fault. I'm so sorry. Like, you're the one that's making yourself have to live up to these beauty standards. If you would just, and you don't have to reject them entirely, But if you would just take them and recreate them in a different way in your own life that feels comfortable and that works for you, that's fine. Like, let her influence you. It's not like you have to reject it completely. You can let her influence you, but influence you in a way where you still have your own identity intact. People aren't willing to go that deep into their own mind because they have to sit alone with themselves and figure out what's going on in their head, and a lot of people don't want to do that. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end it. Deuces.